Welcome. My name is Dundrup. I'm the SPC here at Thepten Norbu Ling, and just briefly wanted to welcome Venerable Namjong back to our virtual Gompa. Venerable is not a brand new teacher for us, but it has been some time since we've had the good fortune of being able to have more classes with him. So I was delighted that he was able to get back in touch and able to offer classes for us in July and August. Venerable is in the Geshe program at Sarah J. So we are in very capable hands as he is very highly advanced in his studies and his learning. So we all get to benefit from his years and years of dedication and study and learning, so which he's able to share with all of us over the course of this course in July and the next course in August. So we do hope that there will be many, many more courses to come as well. Thank you so much for accepting another invitation, Venerable.
Thank you very much. That's very kind to say. So yeah, from my side, I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you, Dundrup, and all the good folks at Thepten Norbu Ling for arranging these teachings, the kind of programs that you are having, making so many different classes and topics available to people all over, is really, I think, unparalleled, perhaps, in the FPMT. So thank you for all your hard work for that. Some buzz on my head I'm seeing. So welcome to everyone. I am seeing well, a lot of new names, only two faces. So let's just jump into things. I'm very yeah, happy to be covering this topic. So let us begin in the usual way in the Tibetan tradition, um, to start off with some preliminary prayers. Uh, so I have some here. Okay. Okay. Everyone can see? Let's do reading view. Oops. Okay. So in general, they say, the taking refuge helps us to mm, follow a wrong path, and the generating of bodhicitta helps us to, um, yeah, fall into a sort of inferior path. So here we can recite the words, but also trying to generate some feeling of the meaning of these words in our hearts. We can recite 3 times. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So then, as we had there, the importance of adjusting the motivation for the teachings is also highly emphasized. So in general, I wanted to just set the kind of larger context for the Buddha Dharma and our lives. And then with that, sort of place this topic that we're going to be covering, the illusion of the self, into the greater context of the Buddha Dharma. So I usually start off teachings like this, and it is, yeah, it is still His Holiness the Dalai Lama's birthday in if it's before midnight on the 6th. So yeah, we'll also say some prayers at the end for his long life. But here, continuing on, how he usually starts off when he gives a Dharma talk, then you know the fundamental starting point of Buddhism, and I'll come back to this later, but the fundamental starting point of Buddhism isn't actually the Buddha, but it is ourselves, and to look at our own condition, our own lives. And His Holiness always starts off with this observation that we all want happiness and we don't want suffering. And everything that we have been doing in our lives from the time when we got out of our mother's womb until now has been in this pursuit of happiness or to avoid suffering. Um, and so whether it was when we were babies, crying for our mother to give us the bottle, to give us the blanket, to change our diapers, to going into, school and studying, or if we, went out, partying or playing, both of that was thinking at the time we were going to, um, somehow make the best life for ourselves, right? And then as we, became adults, then either the person, waking up very early to go exercise, or the person that, binge watches Netflix all weekend, they also are thinking that that is going to sort of bring them some kind of happiness or benefit. Of course, there is some difference in the kind of long-term benefit or the short-term thinking. And then amongst the various goals that people have, some can be more hedonistic, like wanting kind of sensory pleasures, or others work on, say, writing and publishing a novel that doesn't give a kind of, short-term, like pleasant experience, but a deeper feeling of a sense of accomplishment. So the Greeks would call this hedonia for kind of sensory pleasures, and eudaimonia for kind of a sense of well-being from doing a job well done. In any case, the point is all of what we're doing is to gain some sense of well-being and then to um, yeah try to avoid suffering. So then placing it in the Buddhist context, I'll bring up the slides again. Mm, Sorry, 1 second. Okay. So then, although this is Shantideva saying, although wishing to be rid of misery or suffering, they run toward misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. He also says, even those who wish to obtain happiness and overcome suffering will wander with no aim if they do not comprehend the secret of the mind, the principal Dharma. So here, you know, uh, the they in the first stanza, it's actually us, right? So yes, we want to be free of suffering. Yes, we want to have happiness, but we have a fundamental confusion as to the causes of suffering and the causes of happiness. And because of that confusion, we are, as it were, kind of, barking up the wrong tree. The things that we think will bring happiness, actually, we like an enemy destroy those causes, and then not knowing the sort of long-term consequences of our actions, then although we don't want suffering, we run toward the causes of suffering, right? So um, then in the second stanza, even those who wish to obtain happiness and overcome suffering, that's us. we wander with no aim, since we do not comprehend the secret of the mind, the principal Dharma. So here, this secret of the mind, it's not like, you know, mm, like a secret one of our friends tells us, and then, someone asks us about us, and then we say, oh no, I can't tell you, it's a secret. But here, there's two levels of secret, right? Um, and they're called secret because they're sort of not obvious. To discover this truth, it requires, some analysis, right? And so these two levels of secret, one is just on a more conventional level, talking about karma or cause and effect, then to see that it is our virtuous actions that cause happiness or pleasant, beneficial results. And then it is our negative actions, actions underlain by the afflictive emotions that cause suffering, right? So that is not sort of apparent. And sometimes, karma, it can be from actions that we've done even in past lives that we don't remember doing, and yet we are experiencing some effects of that in this life, right? But then, on a more sort of ultimate level, the secret of the mind is how the mind, ourselves, actually all phenomena, lack this reified, exaggerated sense of the self, and that's where the emptiness teachings come in. And well, it's very important to note at the beginning that here, when we talk about the ultimate level of reality and the conventional level of reality, both levels are reality. Okay. So you exist. The things that we normally would consider, tables, chairs, cars, yeah, you, me, happiness, suffering, all of these exist, right? But the way they exist, yeah, the way they exist and the way they actually exist are not aligned. Yeah. And because of that, that is why this talk of illusion, yeah, mirage, like a dream, all these analogies are used, right? Because, like, take for example the mirage. There is, something there, right? It is just hot sand, but due to certain causing conditions, the sun and where you're standing and all this, then there can be an appearance of water, right? So how things appear, it appears like water, but in actuality, it is just hot sand. Then that's why we say mirage or illusion, right? So in general, the self, you do exist, but the way you exist and the way that the kind of ignorant mind conceives you to exist are not the same. Yeah. So since this is kind of not obvious, because we have this appearance, this false appearance all the time, then it is known as the secret of the mind. So then seeing this, I'll continue, right? Enthused by great compassion, you expounded the sublime truth in order to eliminate all wrong views. To you, the Gautama Buddha, I pay homage. So this statement by Nagarjuna, actually, I should mention, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama wakes up in the morning, the first thing he does is to say this verse of homage to the Buddha. And within this one stanza, it is said that all of the Buddha Dharma is sort of encapsulated, right? So, point being, right, enthused by great compassion, motivated by great compassion. See, we define compassion as being the mind that wishes others to be free from suffering. So the Buddha, even long before he became Buddha, was motivated by compassion. But then, uh, though he was motivated by compassion, then this fundamental ignorance we were talking about, that beings don't know the causes of suffering and don't know the causes of happiness. The Buddha then, set out to discover this very fundamental question: why do we suffer? Why? What causes suffering, right? And then you expounded the sublime truth to eliminate all wrong views. Well, this is the two levels of secrets we were talking about, right? um, Seeing that the reason why we suffer uh, is because we have wrong views. We have wrong views that our negative actions aren't going to bring suffering results for us, and we also have wrong views about how we exist. And seeing that, to quote another sutra, um, the Buddhas do not wash away our sins with water, nor do they remove the suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their realization to another mind stream, but rather they liberate sentient beings through teaching the reality of suchness, right? So although, the Buddha, because he has, limitless compassion toward all sentient beings, if he could, you know, wash away our sins with water or remove our suffering like removing a thorn, he would do that. And if it were possible, we would all be liberated by now. Hmm? But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The only way that we become free of suffering is then to eliminate the causes of suffering within our own mind streams. And because those causes then are wrong views, then Buddha taught the truth that then we can discover the the errors of our mistaken ways of thinking. And that is the only way we'll be able to abandon these wrong views and thereby eliminate the suffering that arise from having them. You understand? Mm. Yes. So that is why in the Buddha Dharma there is a lot of emphasis on the mind, right? Training the mind and overcoming these wrong views. Okay. So yeah, then perhaps the most famous stanza of all of the Buddha Dharma, uh, do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of Buddha. Then this also talking about those two secrets. The first two lines talking about the law of karma. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Why? Because the effect of our unwholesome actions is to then suffer in the future, right? Then engage in perfect wholesome actions means, well, the cause of our happiness is the perfect wholesome actions we do, right? Then subdue the mind thoroughly. On a kind of temporary level, we see that the unwholesome, what makes an action wholesome or unwholesome is the motivation of mind with which we undertake that action, right? And if we are motivated by, anger or, pride, attachment, greed, then we will, with anger, will come to kill. With greed, will come to steal. With attachment, will come to, say, cheat on our romantic partners, right? So then, on the other hand, with wholesome states of mind, like generosity, then we will, offer charity. With, a mind of, patience or tolerance, we will then refrain from harming and retaliating the other person when we have been harmed, right? So then, uh, on a more ultimate level, the real way to subdue the mind thoroughly is to understand um, this this false view of the self. Okay, so yeah, I will say a little story now before we continue, right? So one time, hmm, actually, there's a quotation coming up. I'll say this, right? So here, once there is the self, this is showing how this false view of the self actually is the root of all of the other afflictions. So Dharmakirti, who wrote the Pramanavartika, he says, once there is the self, there is an idea of an other. On behalf of self and other, there is attachment and hostility, and all the faults come about in association with these. Okay, so I'll tell a story. Some years ago, I came back to the US and was visiting a friend of mine. And we went shopping at a grocery store. And when we come out of the grocery store, oh, I should mention, my friend, I love him. He had just bought a new BMW. Nice one. Black, really nice. Okay. So we come out of, that's an important point for the story. When we come out into the parking lot, they got the shopping carts. Yeah. So then we hear and yeah, we hear a shopping cart, crash into something. And my friend says, "Oh, sucks for that guy." Yeah. Okay. We keep walking, and then we come to discover that the shopping cart had crashed into his car. Yeah. And there was, some scratch in the paint. At that point, my friend's demeanor changed a lot. And, he was very upset. He had, all these things to say about that person, like this, right? So to me, this is very tasty, right? In general, right? Shopping carts crashing into cars. Yeah, that's not so good, right? That's not nice. But maybe you can see the difference in your own experience when it is a shopping cart crashing into a car and a shopping cart crashing into your car. Hmm? Yes. So in that sense, right, we have this I and mine kind of feeling that comes up. And then the sort of emotional reactions we have are so much stronger, like thousands of percent stronger, right? Um, so one of the kind of things that I want us to do over the next month is I want as much as possible for you guys to relate the teachings that we're covering in the class with your own experience. Okay. So hopefully your car wasn't smashed into, but you might have other things you can identify in your life where this feeling of I or mine made your sort of emotional reaction more strong. And it can be even in a kind of you know, more basic way, right? Um, if any of you are, say, sports fans, right? Sometimes you might watch a game and, it's not like your team. So then, you'll watch and okay, it's kind of exciting game. But if it was like, oh, my favorite team, right? Then if they win, you could be, so happy. Let's say you're out at, I don't know, your friend's house and your team wins the Super Bowl. You'll be so happy. You'll be hugging everyone. Maybe you'll buy a round of drinks for everyone. Okay, don't do that, but I'm just saying, right? You'll be so happy. And on the other hand, if they lose, then it'll be such a tragedy, Um, And you'll see this in like the World Cup or the World Series, that those fans coming back so dejected, having, uh, and that's not even them, right? It's like their team lost. You understand? Right? So this is all to show how this sense of the self and then the others, then the things that are kind of mine and we see benefiting that self, we have such attachment towards. Yeah. Then the things that we see sort of harming the self, we have hostility. Hmm? So that's why Dharmakirti says that all of the faults come about in association with these. Okay? Hmm. Very important. All right. So let me go back a little bit. So that's kind of the overall picture of Buddhism, right? And so now I also just wanted to further set the context by talking about, of course, in the Buddha Dharma, they say there's 84,000 teachings, right? Um, but Lama Tsongkhapa, then in his work, the three principal aspects of the path, then kind of boiled down all the Buddha Dharma into sort of the three, principles of the path, right? The principal aspects of the path, the kind of fundamental realizations and training that we have to go to. So, uh, okay. So here in that text, he says, without the complete intention definitely to be free from circling, there's no way to pacify attachment, seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. Also, by craving for cyclic existence, embodied beings are continuously bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation. So, here, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he liked to translate this word korawa. Korawa is the Tibetan word for samsara, right? Samsara is here likened to a circle. Sometimes you'll see it translated as cyclic existence because, from beginningless time till now, then we have been, as it were, circling, kind of without control, being born in any of the one of the six sort of realms of psychic existence without control. Although we have been born as a human in this life, which is uh, unbelievably fortunate, um, just incredible. Well, yes, it was due to having accumulated some very virtuous actions in our past life. But where we'll be in our next life, who knows? We are not yet at the point of the path where we can direct our rebirth in ways that more advanced practitioners can decide exactly where they're going to be reborn. So without the intention to be free from samsara, then there's no way to pacify attachment seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling, right? So here, what that would mean, some of you then also would be aware of in the Lamrim, they talk about the three types of practitioner, the three capable beings. Yes? And so each of those three practitioners have different goals for their practice. We talk about the practitioner of initial capacity. Their goal is to uh, have pleasurable effects, right? To in the ocean of circling. To get a good rebirth is the effect of good karma. In general, between getting reborn in the lower realms and the higher realms, it is much better to be reborn in the higher realms. So that initial practitioner seeing the relative faults of suffering in the lower realms and the relative advantages of getting a rebirth in the higher realms, then seeks to get reborn in the higher realms. And therefore, they will abandon negative actions and accumulate virtuous ones. But that still is within the ocean of circling. It's still within samsara, right? So then Tsongkhapa says, craving for cyclic existence means even craving or desiring a good rebirth within samsara, then through that, embodied beings are continuously bound, right? So then this gets into the reflections that we take in the so-called middle capable being, and seeing the faults of samsara, and seeing that even getting a good rebirth in our next life is not enough, because, well, what about the life after that? Yeah, we still are within samsara. And even in a relatively good rebirth like that of a human, we still see so many problems, you know, uh, aging, sickness, death, being separated from the things we want, not getting the things that we want, the uncertainty, um, all of these faults of samsara, then it is because we're in samsara, you know. Um, Fundamentally, until we, as they say in what they call the four seals that signify something as being Buddhist doctrine, we have all compounded phenomena are impermanent, all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of suffering, all phenomena are empty and selfless, and then last one, only nirvana is peace. Means until we achieve nirvana, which is the pacification and liberation from all of samsara, then we're going to experience one kind of suffering, or we can maybe say uh, unsatisfactory experience or another, right? And so until we see that the whole realm of samsara is somehow flawed, then we're not going to develop this intention to be free from it. Hmm? And that's the reason that Tsongkhapa says at the very beginning, seek renunciation. Yes? Okay? We seek renunciation by first reflecting on the faults of samsara, then recalling or sort of analyzing what are the causes of samsara. And since we say that samsara is this process of uncontrolled rebirth due to our karma and afflictions, then we set as our main goal then to pacify the afflictions, okay? Which, as we'll see in 2 minutes, the way to do that is to meditate on ultimate reality, okay? So that's the first principle of the path, the mind seeking renunciation, yeah? Oops, okay. So then Lama Tsongkhapa continues to the second principle of the path, the mind of bodhicitta. So then he continues by saying, even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. Okay? So here, uh, to many of you, I hope this is a review, but in general, we distinguish the Mahayana tradition, and all traditions will distinguish between the sort of near liberation or nirvana, yeah, and the state of unsurpassed enlightenment. Okay, so we see, even in the Theravadan tradition, all the Buddhist traditions, they will assert that there was a difference in realization between the Buddha, yeah, and say his disciples like Shariputra or Moggallana, right? Moggallana, Shariputra, they had attained the state of arhatship or the state of, liberation from samsara, right? But not complete enlightenment. Yeah. And well, the difference is the main difference for us is in this tradition, we assert the Buddha to be omniscient, right? And why omniscience is seen as something useful, it's then because with that omniscient mind, the Buddha was able to help beings in the most effective way, right? Otherwise, well, one very famous story within the sutra, there was an old man and his family, who he was living with, were kind of abusive to him. So then he thought, well, I don't want to live in this situation anymore. I'm gonna, leave my family and go to the Buddhist monastery and become a monk. So he goes to the monastery, and Shariputra is the abbot. And Shariputra, yes, was an arhat, had achieved nirvana, had some level of clairvoyance. But when the man comes, he, through his kind of limited powers of clairvoyance, couldn't see any sort of root of virtue that the man had accumulated that would then sort of allow him to become a monk. So Shariputra says this to him and turns him away. So you can imagine this man was very distraught. His family was abusive to him, and now even the Buddhist monks wouldn't accept him. So then it is said, he goes, then he thinks, there's no other solution. I have to go kill myself. So he's walking and he's about to throw himself into a river. And then it says, as soon as he jumps in, the Buddha, through his kind of miraculous powers, pulls him out of the river. They have a conversation. And when the old man tells the Buddha that, the Shariputra had told him he doesn't have any roots of virtue to become a monk, Buddha says, well, although Shariputra is an arhat, he has not achieved the state of omniscience. So therefore, he cannot see all that I can see. And I can see that you do have the root of virtue to be a monk. And then he tells a story about how in a past life, that old man had been a fly, and there was a cow that was going around the stupa. Yeah. And the cow would, make poo-poo. And then the fly would go from kind of, one, one pile to another. And in that way, was able to do a circumambulation around the stupa. Hmm? By that root of virtue, the man then was able to become ordained and actually became an arhat, attained nirvana in that lifetime. So this is also used to be one of Rinpoche's favorite stories, also because it explains the tremendous benefit of holy objects. Normally, in order for something to, as we see here, if not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Yeah? So normally, for something to become the cause of enlightenment, it needs to be done with a motivation of bodhicitta. But one big exception is the actions that are done in relation to holy objects, like statues, stupas, and so forth. Then, even without a mind of bodhicitta, hey, this fly that was going around actually had a mind of attachment, the attachment to the cow dung. But with that mind, then doing the circumambulation, it became a cause for, well, not just liberation, but enlightenment. So, in any case, yeah, that story is a lot to unpack. But here, the two main things is the importance of generating the mind of bodhicitta, and also to understand the importance of attaining enlightenment, right? We need to become enlightened because then and only then will we have the knowledge, the skillful means, the qualities to benefit beings in the best way. Until we have achieved enlightenment, then we are subject to making even these kind of, little mistakes that Shariputra made, right? Because he wasn't omniscient like the Buddha, then he couldn't see the karma of this man, and therefore turned him away. Okay. Then the reason to meditate on the right view, okay? Without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, the two other principles of the path, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. Okay. So, yeah, in general, right, the other two principles of the path, generating the mind of renunciation, generating the mind of enlightenment, we've already seen why those are important. But even if we have those minds, right, if we don't have the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, we can't cut the root cause of circling. And therefore, with either the wish to achieve mere liberation from samsara or the wish to attain enlightenment, both of those need the wisdom realizing ultimate reality. Okay? In other words, uh, either of those two goals are achieved by uh, realizing ultimate reality or emptiness. If we have the mind of just wanting to attain mere liberation from samsara, and then we meditate on emptiness, keep meditating, then we will generate or we will realize personal liberation or nirvana. Then, if we have the mind of bodhicitta and meditate on emptiness, that will then become the cause of unsurpassed enlightenment. But either of those goals require the wisdom realizing emptiness. And because of that, they say that's one of the reasons why they say the perfection of wisdom, right? The wisdom realizing emptiness is like the mother. Yeah. They call it, right? The mother, Bhagavati. Yeah. So this kind of analogy from ancient India, right? Or actually, it was said in ancient India, but it even applies today, right? So an Indian mother, right, um, will have an Indian child, right? But that Indian mother also, depending on who the father is, right? If the father is, say, German, then the child will be German. If the father is whatever, Australian, then the child will also be Australian, right? So here, the wisdom realizing emptiness is like the mother because, and then the mind of on the method side, that's like the father. Okay. So in that analogy, if done with the mind of renunciation, combining with wisdom realizing emptiness, then we'll become a Shravaka Arhat. Or if done with the mind of bodhicitta, then with the mother of wisdom realizing emptiness, then we'll become full Buddha. Anyway, you will see that in the traditional texts. In any case, it is further, yeah, for our purposes, it's just enough to know that, again, the motivation is of primary importance, but whichever of the goals we might have, and please do have the goal of achieving complete enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, but uh, either of those two goals, renunciation or complete enlightenment, require the wisdom realizing emptiness. Okay? All right. So then, since that is required, then how do we actually cultivate that right view. So here, this quotation from Sutra, if you analytically discern the lack of self in phenomena, and if you cultivate that analysis in meditation, this will cause the result, attainment of nirvana. There is no peace through any other means. Okay. So it's probably, yeah, I think it's worth saying this to place this all in the greater context of Tibetan Buddhism. So in general, um, there were different views that came up, and some would say, some did say, and you'll see this in the Lamrim Chenmo. There is this the Chinese master Hashan. Yeah, have you guys read Lamrim Chenmo? Okay. Anyway, there was this view that kind of came up that okay, just having your mind in a kind of blank, non-conceptual state, that was enough to attain enlightenment. Okay. They might even say, yes, the view, the false view of the self, they might even agree that is the root of samsara. But if you just maintain this kind of non-conceptual state, at that time, you don't have the view of the self operating strongly. And therefore, just meditating on that, that's enough to gain, hey, full enlightenment, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa, in his text, drawing on the great Indian masters, Nagarjuna, Chantakirti, and so forth, and then here, even this sutra from the Buddha, right? Then describe the need for analysis, right? Analytically discerning the lack of self in phenomena, and then cultivating that analysis in meditation. This causes the result, the attainment of nirvana. There is no peace through any other means. Okay? So this quotation is cited by Lama Tsongkhapa at the beginning of his section on special insight on the right view in the Lamrim Chenmo. He further goes on and cites Chandakirti saying, in their minds, excuse me, yogis perceive that all afflictions and faults arise from the reifying view of the perishing aggregates. And knowing that the self is the object of that view, they refute that self. Okay. So here's some vocabulary, right? Reifying view of the perishing aggregates. Okay, I'll explain that. So the aggregates, maybe you know, there's the 5 aggregates. We can think of these as the psychophysical kind of components of the body, basically the body and mind. I mean, if you know in the Heart Sutra, they say it, right? Form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. Okay. In a more sort of abbreviated way, we can think of body and mind. Yeah. So they're perishing, meaning changing moment by moment. Yeah. To have a view that reifies means that we are sort of believing in something above and beyond what's actually there. Okay. So in this context, there is the body and mind, yes, but we somehow believe in a controller that is above and beyond the body and mind. Okay. So let's do a thought experiment. All right. So imagine someone comes to you and says, all right, I have a deal. You can trade your body for any body you want. Okay. Maybe, I don't know, some Olympic athletes, or maybe, I don't know, someone you find really good looking, Brad Pitt or whoever, right? We can trade your body for the body of whomever you want. And then we can also trade your mind for any mind you want. Hey, you can trade your mind for the omniscient mind of Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, whoever, your favorite Buddha is. Okay? So just consider this. Consider this. All right. So just out of curiosity, I only see three faces, but of those three, how many would do the trade? Would you trade? Huh? Yeah, Lorna, yes. Yes, you would do the trade. Hey, at the very least, can you imagine all this work we're doing? Dundra, why wouldn't you make the trade? Come on. We're saying, we're doing all this work. I got to attain enlightenment. I'm going to then do 100,000 prostrations to purify my mind, all this. Someone comes to you and says, we can give you, enlightenment right now. We can trade your mind for Manjushi's omniscient mind. I mean, if it were possible, I would definitely do it. Right? Yeah. But anyway, the point isn't whether you would make the trade, but I want you to notice something. When we thought of making the trade, it was at least kind of, you know, conceivable of us to think about making the trade. And maybe some of us were like, okay, yeah, whose body would I want? Would I want, I don't know, Usain Bolt, or, some really fast Olympic, sprinter? Yeah, that might be cool. Would I want to be, some kind of NBA player? I've never been able to dunk a basketball. I would kind of want to see what that feels like. That might be cool, right? We could think about it. But the point is, for us, the fact that we were able to think about making such a trade coherently, what does that show? So in general, okay, right? I have my mala, say, and then my cup. I'm the owner, and I have these possessions, right? So then, if there was someone here, and I'm like, ooh, I like your mala. Do you want to trade? Yeah. We can conceive of, my mala, my possession, being given to someone else. Their possession becomes mine, right? Same with a cup. So we have the possessor and the possessions. These are independent, and therefore the possessor or the owner can engage in such a trade, right? Hmm. Now, the fact that we could conceive of making a trade with our body and mind shows that we have an innate view of a possessor of our body and mind that is independent from the body and mind and would be the one making the trade, right? Uh-huh. This thought experiment was actually also stated in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika. And it gives us a sense how we have this innate feeling of an independent controller, possessor of the self. Yeah? Hmm? Mm. Sorry. An independent controller, possessor of the aggregates. That controller is the self. That controller is the false self. Hmm? So, knowing that the self is the object of that view, they refute that self. Okay. So here, remember, in our two levels of existence, right? There is a conventionally speaking, like you that exists. Yes. Here, when we talk about the self that doesn't exist, that's what they say. They refute that self. That self, which is the object of the view of the perishing aggregates. Okay? So every mind has an object. So let me put it like this, another analogy for you. Sometimes, we can conceive of, the child being afraid of the monster in the closet. Yes? Okay. So then, the child might come into the parent's bedroom, mommy, there's a monster in my closet. Okay. So that child has a mind believing in the monster in the closet. Yes. Because of that belief, all the fear arises. Yes. Okay. So then what does the skillful parent do? You go to the closet, open the door, you turn on the light. Yes? Then the child sees that that object that was held by the mind believing in the monster in the closet, discovery of the lack of monster in the closet means the mind believing in it also goes away. That mind goes away, then the fear also goes away. You see? Uh-huh. So in a similar way, we have our mind grasping to the true existence of the self, the independent existence of the self. Okay? That mind then holds onto an object. This one doesn't exist. Yeah. So knowing that this self is the object of that view from which all faults arise, they refute that self. Therefore, they have to really analyze what is it that that mind of ignorance is holding on to? And then to analyze whether that exists or not. That's the process of realizing emptiness. It's not just some, okay, I'm gonna space out and not have any conceptual thought, right? It requires this analysis. So this was the main thing that Lama Tsongkhapa emphasized in his emptiness teachings, the need for analysis to discover the correct view of emptiness, and then to yeah, to not sort of yeah, kind of how do you say, to deny that some kind of conceptual thought is actually needed and useful in the path, right? In general, how the other wrong view came up is they talk about the Buddha's omniscient mind as being non-conceptual. It's a non-conceptual direct realization of all phenomena in one time, right? That's the Dharmakaya. So then these people would think, okay, the Buddha's mind is non-conceptual. Let me make my mind non-conceptual, and then I'll attain enlightenment. But it's not like that. It is through the analysis. We use the concept to overcome the false concepts. We use correct concepts to overcome wrong concepts, right? That's the point. Okay. So then we had this. All right. So now, what kind of analysis are we using to meditate on emptiness? And here, by the way, there's that this kind of mini course is all based on the that teaching of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, recognizing the false I. So have you all downloaded that? Okay. So it is available online, and it's very good. Um, I'm just going to go through, yeah, maybe the first 2 pages in today's lecture, but please, you can download it if you haven't already and read it before next time. And of course, even this, um, the teachings on which it was based is the presentation of emptiness that's in the Lam Rim. So if you are reading another Lam Rim text, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, Lam Rim Chenmo, and so forth, it is, drawing from that. So you can also read those texts as well to kind of support what we're going to be doing on the Sunday night or Monday morning sessions. Okay. Anyway, although there although there are many different uh, analyses and reasonings that establish emptiness, then the main one that is used in the Lam Rim, particularly the liberation of the palm of your hand, is this meditating on emptiness using the 4 vital points. Okay. And so here, the 4 vital points are the vital point of recognizing the object to be refuted, the vital point of understanding the pervasion, the vital point of understanding of not being one, and the vital point of definite ascertainment of not existing separately. Okay. So it is said that this first one, recognizing the object to be refuted, or sometimes they say the object of negation, that is the most important one. Okay. So the basis for that, Shantideva says this, without contacting the entity that is imputed, you will not apprehend the absence of that entity. Okay. So the common analogy that is used in the Lam Rim is, if you were going to try to find a thief. So in general, those of you in the US, right, uh, and maybe in other countries they do this, but in the US, right, the in the post office, they have the FBI's most wanted posters, or they used to. It's been a long time since I've been in a post office. I think they would still have that, right? Yeah, do they? Okay, you can imagine. Why do they do that? Because if you're looking for whatever kind of criminal, you need to have a description and know what they look like. Otherwise, how can you, be able to, uh, yeah, find them, catch them? Hmm? So similarly, the entity that is imputed, remember our mind of ignorance holds on to an object. We need to understand very well what that one is. Hmm? Otherwise, we won't be able to apprehend its absence. So I'll just say, yeah, those of you, listening, okay, if I were to ask you, is there a Lang Chen in your room, in the room where you are now? Is there a Lang Chen? Okay, so if you don't speak Tibetan, Lang Chen is a Tibetan word, okay? But if you don't speak Tibetan, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll be like, I don't know, what's a Lang Chen, right? Okay. Lang Chen means elephant. That's your Tibetan lesson for the day. Okay. So now that you know, oh, Lang Chen means elephant, and you look around your room, and probably there's no elephant in the room, right? Okay. So that's the point. Um, without first understanding the the entity that is imputed, okay, here this word imputed is going to come up a lot in the emptiness teachings. So one of the other analogies they give very commonly is sort of at the time of dusk, yeah, when the sun is about to go down, then there's a sort of coiled rope in the garden. Hmm? And then due to the darkness and whatever kind of conditions, you'll then, even you look at the rope, but you'll think it's a snake. Yes? And then also fear will arise and so forth. Then you might even just go back into the house, not wanting to mess with the snake. You come out the next morning when it's more sunny, and then you see, oh, it was just a rope, right? So the mind imputed snake or the existence of the snake on the basis of the rope, right? It was just merely imputed. Means no snake from there, yet the mind imputed and believed in the existence of the snake. Yes? Okay. So in this way, the false view of the self is just being kind of imputed. It doesn't actually exist, yet the mind believes it to exist. Okay. So in any case, understanding what is being held onto by that mind of ignorance is, the crucial first step in meditating or just, realizing emptiness. And it is said, once this step is done well, then realizing emptiness is actually relatively easy. Okay. So, uh, yeah, let's continue with an exercise. Yeah, a little meditation, actually. Okay, so let's meditate a bit, and over the next week, I also want you to do this as a little homework assignment. Okay, so kind of sit comfortably, and yeah, just allow your mind to gain some stillness. We do that by concentrating on the breath. So try to connect with the sensations in the body as you breathe in and out. You might notice that your abdomen expands and contracts. You might notice that the chest expands and contracts. You might feel the air as it passes over the skin in the nostril area. Then when there are other appearances that come to the mind, try not to engage with them. Just let them go. Okay. So now I want us to do a short meditation on identifying this object of negation, identifying this innate sense of the I. So in the traditional teachings, it will say, recall a time when you have been falsely accused. someone calls you a thief, and this mind comes up very strongly. No, it wasn't me. So I'll give you a few different methods and you can experiment with them over the next week. The next one is to recall a time when you made a mistake and you harshly criticized yourself. Or on the other side, when you did something really good and you're proud of yourself. Or even if you're afraid of heights, then when you're sort of at the edge of great height and you had this fear arise that you would fall. So recall one of those times and try to identify how the I is appearing to you at that time. Do we get the sense of an independent I, an I that is independent from the body and mind? So as we do in analytic meditations like this, we use some analysis, some conceptual thought. And in this case, we try to evoke that strong sense of I. But then if we're able to, once we're able to evoke it, we just observe how it appears. And at that time, we sort of rest in that feeling that comes up, and we sort of drop the analysis. So they call it alternating between the analytical and the placement meditation. Use analysis to conjure up that sense of I, but once it's conjured, once it's evoked, just observe. Okay, so please gently come out of the meditation. So we have a few minutes left. I wanted to open it up for some questions. Anyone have a question at this time? No? You're already so well versed in emptiness. Oh, okay. Jai. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and
There we go. Okay, I'm going, I want to thank you, and I'm going to have to make my apologies. I'll have to see the rest of this on YouTube because I've got a conflictual class actually, so that I can't get on YouTube. So thank you for your, and it's really helpful. I'm struggling with, it's like I can get bodhicitta, but emptiness is such a mind boggle for me. So any input I can get on that is helpful. So thank you.
okay. You're very welcome. Um, that wasn't a question in the end. It's okay. For now, if there's no more questions, I'll just kind of summarize the main point we covered today, and then we can dedicate. Okay. So, yeah, I guess to sum up, right? You exist, but the way you exist and the way the innate mind conceives you exist is not the same. So what we try to do in identifying the object of negation is trying to conjure up this larger than life sense of the I, right? And therefore, most of the time it's just kind of operating in the background. But those times when we feel like we were wronged or falsely accused, then that I comes up quite strong, right? So, like like that scene in Taxi Driver, right? Robert De Niro. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Right? So you might hear some word, right? Like you're stupid. So I just said you're stupid, and all of you on the Zoom call heard that. But until you think like I was talking to you, right? Then it wouldn't upset you, right? But it is, as it were, like Shantideva says, we set up the target of the eye that then can get hit by the arrow, right? Unless we have that strong sense of I and somehow those words, you're stupid, hits that, then we won't get upset. So in that, this meditation we're doing, trying to conjure up that sense of the I, try and use try to see in your daily life, right? Someone kind of bumps into you, they bumped into me. It is said that the Tibetan yogis, they would go to a crowded marketplace and to feel this kind of a jostling of the crowd, and then that would help their meditation, help to get that sense of I come up. So you exist, but the I that's going to come up in those, that strong sense, larger than life sense of the I, that one actually doesn't exist. But we have to first understand how that appears at the time so we can refute it through our analysis. Okay? Okay. Yes, I see another hand.
Good morning, Venerable Namjong.
Good morning.
Actually, sorry. So is there a happy medium, a middle way? Because, you know, to for you to have a call to action, to change things, to not accept perceived mediocrity, or to just enact change where it needs to be enacted, there has to be that sense of I. So I guess my question is, how do you find the medium where you don't get so caught up in it's here, it's not dependently arising, it's me, and I need to change things and I can change things, as
Yeah.
opposed to, well, it's not really existing. Not to get nihilistic, but I don't really need to put an effort into it. Like somebody bounced me with a card and I don't need to say anything. I can just take the bouncer. I could say, excuse me, you bounced me the card. Take the card, put it back. You know what? I don't know if that makes sense.
So it does. Now, the thing is, um, the happy medium is the conventional existence, right?
Hmm.
So we have to keep in mind the just because the false I doesn't exist doesn't mean that the I doesn't exist.
Right.
And so you would still, the bodhisattvas who realize the lack of the inherent existence of the self, you better believe they're out there working for social justice, they're working for sentient beings, all these things. But they're doing it on the basis of what actually exists, right? And so we're not falling into nihilism by denying this false I that doesn't exist. We're not denying the conventional reality. How I like to describe the conventional reality is like someone who's totally untrained in philosophy, like your cab driver or the person bagging your groceries, whatever, right? If you ask them, do I exist? Do you exist? Do cars exist? Do houses exist? Right? Do natural disasters exist? Does war exist? All these things, they would say yes, right? So all of that does exist. And, the kind of conventionally existent I conventionally suffers. That is enough that we don't want to suffer even conventionally. So then all of these things that we still do in the world to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings, we still engage in those kinds of actions. Mm. So the middle
Okay.
way, the middle way is the conventional existence. The false I doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
The independent I doesn't exist, but the I exists.
Right.
So there's basically two ways, and this is how we discover, right? And this is what we're going to get into next week about the I being merely labeled by the mind. So we can say existence either would exist independently or dependently, right? If the I exists, it has to be one of those two, dependent or independent. We first then come to refute independent existence, but we're not refuting existence full stop. Then, if existence means independent existence or dependent existence, we refute independent existence, that only leaves dependent existence.
Okay. I see what
Hmm?
you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Susan, I see your hand is up as well. Hi.
I just want to make sure I understand this. Did you say that the innate way our mind perceives the self is false? It's innately in our mind that it perceives the self as false, or the I is false. It's
Right.
innate in our mind?
Yeah. So, yeah, this requires just a little bit of parsing. So in general, in the text, we have what's called the innate grasping, and then we have what's called the sort of intellectually acquired grasping, right? So intellectually acquired means if you were to study a philosophical system, and then that philosophical system said you exist independently, right? Kind of like actually the view of the Atman in the ancient Hindu philosophy. There is this, it's kind of like the soul that's permanent, independent from the body and mind. Yeah. There you would learn about that through your receiving some teachings on it. Therefore, intellectually acquired. What the Buddha, what Chandrakirti, what Lama Tsongkhapa, what the great masters have said is the root of our samsara is the innate grasping we have to the self. Okay? Now, what that means is, even cows, even dogs, even ants, even the fly, when you go to swat it, it'll fly away. It has this innate sense of the self. Okay? Now, I will say there are kind of three ways to conceive of the self. Yeah. We would have, let's say, that person who's engaged in kind of wrong philosophical systems, they might even believe in an independent self. Yeah. Then the person who's realized emptiness will realize that there is no independent self, right? And they'll say there's no independent self. Then, if when we're not being philosophically reflective, we will just say, I'm in Nepal, right? We'll have a kind of unqualified, innate sense of the self that is not not really asserting independent existence, not asserting, anything on a deeper level than just the conventional reality. Yes, I'm in Nepal now. Okay. So that also is innate, but that's not a wrong view. It's not a wrong view to say I'm in Nepal, right? But then when we ask a bit deeper, right, try to be a little bit more philosophically complex, and we say, okay, well, Namjong, you say you're in Nepal. Uh, that I that is in Nepal, is that independent from your body and mind? Is it one with your body and mind? And we start to ask more questions. Then we get into the ultimate analysis, right? So when we conjure up through being falsely accused or thinking we're about to fall, we will sense an innate view of the self. Means not because of like philosophical reasoning, but just an innate sense of ourself will come up. And that one, at that time, how it appears, actually, that's not the reality. Do you understand?
Okay, I see what you mean. Thank you for explaining that. It's like just sort of automatic, our automatic self, without any reflection on it.
That's right. And you'll see that. And that's why in general, we want to stay peaceful and calm. But in the context of this meditation, we want to sort of rile up that false view of the false sense of the I, you know? And therefore, it's a bit uncomfortable remembering last time we were accused or wronged or something like this. And it's like, but we're going to use that then in our meditation. Hmm?
Thank you very much. That was helpful. And thank you. This has been a great class.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very kind to say. So, if there's nothing else, we can leave it at that for now. But first, a homework assignment. So this little exercise we did, please, try to do it and try to, even just like what we did, 5 minutes, trying to recall those. You can maybe think of many different things. So today for me, I was also recalling, in this part of the world, India, Nepal, a lot of people will kind of cut in line. And that really also causes my eye to come up, right? So whatever is kind of your pet peeve, whatever makes that eye arise for you, think about it and use those in your meditation. So maybe over, some time through analysis, you can identify sort of, 5, 10, even more times when the strong sense of the eye is evoked. And then that's really, really good. Those Tibetan yogis, they would even spend, a year or 2 years on just this, identifying the opposite of negation. So normally they might be in the Himalayan cave, but when they're working on this part, they go into the cities and they go into the marketplace and they get, bumped around and hassled and all this. Okay. So let's do a brief dedication. Okay, you see? Yeah. Okay. So may the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Then especially, still His Holiness' birthday, some parts of the world. This actually is most important, that His Holiness can, remain with us and guide us. So incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life, and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then for His Holiness' wishes to be spontaneously fulfilled, Savior of the land of snow teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion, to the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. So this, again, very important. So we think about all the problems in the world, the problem due to natural disasters. I just saw that very terrible flooding that happened, right next door to you guys in New Mexico and Texas. Then, His Holiness, with ultimate compassion for all sentient beings, then will wish that all the war, all of the natural disasters, all the problems due to environmental degradation, all the sicknesses, mental illness, physical illness, all the problems of suffering will be immediately pacified. So by just wishing that all of His Holiness wishes will be spontaneously fulfilled, since great beings like that wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and to enjoy perfect happiness forever, then that really is the only dedication we need. So then lastly, this dedication, sealing the merits of emptiness, due to all the past, present, future merits collected by me and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, May I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state, which is completely empty of existing from its own side by myself alone, who am completely existing from my own side. Okay, so just one little comment on that, right? Remember, this is not then to fall into nihilism. It's empty of existing from its own side, but it exists. It doesn't exist from its own side, but it exists. So how does it exist? It exists being merely labeled by the mind. Okay. All right. So we can leave it at that for today. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you,
And
Venerable.